In today's video, we're taking a massive look here at the tropics, where we do have Hurricane Nigel here expected to drop down the tropical storm status. We're going to talk a little bit about this one. We really want to talk about the potential tropical cyclone here for the southeast coast that is going to be impacting states like South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, and even surrounding states, with major impacts, as that one is expected to become a tropical storm and even nearly a Category 1 hurricane. So major impacts are expected with that for the eastern United States. Afterwards, we're going to dive into the upcoming pattern where there is other storm systems on the way. Big temperature flips, although the cold every single day looks to hold on longer and longer. We're going to be talking about that, as I just expect September to kind of roll out as a colder month along the eastern seaboard especially. We do see that negative P&A head in for the west, and that should bring warmer temperatures eventually, but that cold is putting up a massive fight. Now, before we get into things, be sure to check out Prestige Weather in the description and the pinned comment down below, where we go over early access to our monthly and seasonal forecasts. We do have our third winter forecast coming out very soon. For there, we also do weekly consulting calls, other consulting services, and many more things. It's only $5 a month, and you can find it in the pinned comment and description down below. Now, let's dive into Hurricane Nigel real quickly. This one is expected to remain a hurricane until about tomorrow morning at about 8 a.m., where it kind of drops down to tropical storm status, staying that way through the weekend and kind of curving back. We did expect originally the potential risk for Iceland here, maybe the UK to get hit, but it does look to take a western curve, which would put it more on a trajectory of in between Greenland and Iceland, which is really good news because we're seeing kind of the most minimal land impacts possible with this type of a route. So this is all good news here from hurricane, or we'll just call it tropical cyclone Nigel, because this one is expected to kind of lower below that hurricane status relatively shortly. Now, what you're all probably a lot more curious about here, potential tropical cyclone 16 currently has maximum sustained winds of 35 miles per hour. This is expected to continue to climb, and this should put it at tropical storm status, that is very soon, as in this evening, literally. So Thursday evening, September 21st. We do expect this one to remain at tropical storm status through the coastal regions of North Carolina into southeast Virginia and even up into the Delmarva, where it'll eventually drop to that more tropical depression status before moving offshore of the Northeast and south of Long Island, south of Connecticut, and south of Rhode Island there, where it will be back over water. That's kind of an interesting situation, and I think we're going to be needing to talk about this one over the coming days really a lot. Even as we move through the weekend, we're probably still going to be talking about this one. As of this morning, I do live in coastal Virginia, as some of you know, so we have seen those warnings come in. It popped in on my phone this morning. Tropical storm warnings all the way from the southern coast of North Carolina all the way up to the coast of Delaware. We do have tropical storm warnings in effect for all of these areas. Very concerning storm. We're watching it closely, and again, it should move into stronger tropical storm status, where we could see 40 to 50 mile per hour winds, inches and inches of rainfall, coastal flooding where storm surge is going to be possibly up to 4 feet. So many different major impacts with this one. And as we dive into the upcoming pattern in a little bit, we will see this be something that we talk about in there as well. So more on this to come later on in the video. For the entire Atlantic, we see 16 Nigel, and then this other tropical disturbance here. This one has a 20% chance of development over the next 48 hours, and then a 70% chance over the next 7 days, as it's expected to head towards the Caribbean through this MDR region, which is short for Main Development Region. This one will be one we have to track for quite a while, and could be even seeing some potential impacts after that cone is all said and done. So there is a lot to go over for this one over the coming days and even potentially weeks. Now, as we dive into the upcoming pattern, we're going to see this potential tropical cyclone 16, doesn't really roll off the tongue that well, be kind of a big talking point. By the time we're reaching tomorrow morning, we see it's down to 1,005. Pretty far offshore and not really bringing land impacts just yet. Similarly, or I guess not similarly, but simultaneously better yet, we do see another area of storms. This one's pretty far stretching. We see impacts all the way from the northern Rockies through the northern plains and then back down through the southern plains and portions of the Midwest for thunderstorms, some snowfall there in the Rockies. This one's going to bring a wide palette of impacts, and we're going to be seeing that happen over the coming days. By the time we reach later on Friday, September 22nd, we can see that there is still this storm system around as 1004 over Colorado, bringing some heavier showers and snowfall here to the north of it for states like Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, even North Dakota, South Dakota, and Nebraska. And then to the south of it, we're going to imagine real quickly what this probably looks like. Probably a warm front somewhere out there, and then a cold front stretching down. And along this cold front would be the biggest thunderstorm risk with this one. We do see our tropical cyclone here is approaching closer and closer to North Carolina here, as heavy precipitation is now moving onshore to coastal North Carolina and Virginia by the time we're reaching tomorrow afternoon into the evening. So 4, 5, 6 p.m. there. We can see pretty major impacts. By the time we reach Saturday here on the 23rd, we see this low pressure system by that afternoon is now located somewhere in northern North Carolina, southern Virginia there. Pretty strong at this point, bringing heavy rainfall, strong winds, and look at how far this precipitation field is stretching. We see all the way up through New England. We're seeing heavy rainfall from this one. Also, we have 1005 millibar low pressure center there over Nebraska and South Dakota now, still bringing some moderate impacts to these northern plains and upper Midwest regions. As we head kind of overnight Saturday into Sunday, we see this tropical system will now have moved towards the Delmarva, still bringing some pretty heavy impacts here to Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, New Jersey here. We can see a 999 over South Dakota, cold front stretching down, warm front somewhere up here, and this one could be bringing some pretty major severe weather to states like Oklahoma and take that northward all the way through the plains and Midwest. This one could be a very impactful one, and it's happening very soon as well. By the time we reach Monday afternoon, the 25th, we see the remnants of what was that tropical storm, still bringing some precipitation there to the northeast and mid-Atlantic, but pretty much died down by this point. We see the upper Midwest and northern plains seeing some showers still, and then some thunderstorm activity to the south for Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, and Mississippi, as well as some of those surrounding states. A more major storm system now moving onshore to the northwest, Pacific Northwest, California, Oregon, Washington, receiving some pretty major impacts from this one. By the time we reach Tuesday, we can see that storm system is still around there, bringing more moderate precipitation, if anything, here for states, again, like California, Oregon, and Washington. We do see some showery and maybe some isolated thunderstorm activity happening here from Colorado down through New Mexico, Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama there. A few showers around for the Dakotas, and then the southeast really getting maybe some isolated thunderstorm activity, especially there in Georgia and Florida. As we keep going towards Wednesday, we see a little bit of a more major storm system developing once again here somewhere in the plains, and this is bringing some heavier precipitation up and down those plains regions. We still see some precipitation over the Pacific Northwest as well. Let's take this towards Thursday evening, afternoon time frame. And we can see that, again, we still see some pretty major impacts due to this central United States system. Heavier thunderstorms perhaps in there. Nothing too crazy, but could bring a pretty significant amount of rainfall over the course of multiple days of this system existing. The Northwest is still receiving rainfall and even snowfall from this system that's been hammering them basically for multiple days at that point. That could lead towards some pretty high rainfall totals over time, of course. And then by the time we're reaching next weekend, we can see Saturday, September 30th. This storm system is now moving down into the southeast. We see a pretty potent cold air mass into the northwest, perhaps our chance at a first more widespread snowfall event here, as we see Montana, Wyoming, Idaho, Nevada, and Utah seeing some pretty darn heavy snowfall here for a lot of areas. And then we see a strengthening low here at the end of the model run for Colorado as that cold is deepening down. Heavier snowfall persisting. This could be our first major snowfall of the season. Now, the total precipitation here, no surprise, we see some pretty heavy totals. Starting here in the northwest, we get above average amounts. For the Rockies, down through the plains, and some of the deeper south, we also see very heavy amounts as we see those persistent storm systems sticking around. I think there's 2 of them over the course of the model run, and that is quite persistent. And then along the eastern seaboard, we see totals here all the way from the Carolina coast up through New England, and you take that all in between, and we're seeing anywhere from 2 to 5 inches of precipitation total in here, all pretty much as a result of that tropical storm. So that is going to bring major rainfall for a single system, of course. The temperature pattern here, again, we see this cold air mass along the east. This looks to persist pretty much through the model run. We'll see when that eventually comes to an end. We see a negative PNA set up, but really the area that sees the warmth as a result of this is the areas in between. And we have seen this before, but it's a little bit less common. And every single day as you've been watching, you've probably noticed that we eventually see warmth in the east, but we continue to see that get pushed back day after day after day. And when that happens, I usually I note the fact that we could just see the cold persist straight through. It's not a good sign when a model is backing down off of an idea, and that is certainly what we're seeing here. We see that negative PNA persists here, so we continue to see the cold in this area, but so does this cold along the east, and we see warmth in between. This is by September 23rd, in just a couple days from now, but let's keep going, and we see that cold sticking around for the east. I mean, this is through the 30th, so this is 9 days from now. We still see cooler air here for a lot of the east. We still see the negative PNA as well here for a lot of the west, but the warmth again is over more of the central United States, if anything, and it kind of stays that way through the model run thus far. Let's keep going, and we hold on to neutral temperatures in the east through October 3rd, but for October 4th, 5th, and 6th, we finally see a warmer air mass take place over the entire eastern states, but this has been pushed back significantly. And then as we look out west, this PNA is becoming more positive right around this time frame, so that negative PNA comes to an end. And I would not be surprised that if very shortly after this particular frame, if we continue to see warmth prevail in these areas, and maybe our first positive PNA and really cold pattern here in the eastern states happens around that kind of first to second week of October timeframe. And that's all assuming, by the way, that this model run is completely correct, which it will not be. So this is going to be something that we need to continue to talk about over the coming days and continue to track. But we've seen things trending in a colder direction. And especially from yesterday to today, we've seen a large jump in that direction. But this is just going to be something that we need to track extremely closely. We do upload every single day, so be sure to subscribe for those daily uploads. You can even hit the bell icon for daily notifications when we upload so you never miss one. Be sure to like the video if you did enjoy it, leave a comment down below, and I will see you guys in the next video.